Cornel West, you have a very important announcement. We are honoured that you've chosen our platform to make this announcement. Please tell us why you are here talking to us today.
Well, you know, my dear brother, that I have been fighting for truth and justice for 55 years, beginning when I was 15 years old there in the chocolate side of Sacramento, Shiloh Baptist Church, and working with the Black Panther Party. Never joined the party, was deeply, deeply committed to their fundamental concern for poor and working people. And now, 55 years later, I've decided to continue that fight for truth and justice by running for the president of the USA on the People's Party to ensure that we can reintroduce to America the best of itself. And the best of America is Martin Luther King Jr., Ella Baker, Fannie Lou Hamer, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, it's Edward Said, it's Grace Lee Boggs, it's Chief Joseph, it's Luisa Marino, all of these different peoples of different colors and genders and sexual orientations of James Baldwin and Audre Lorde doing what? Telling America the truth about itself, and the condition of truth is always to allow the suffering of precious poor and priceless working people to be heard. And yes, you're right, it is about love, because justice is what love looks like in public. But by love, what we're talking about is looking at the world through the lens of those Frantz Fanon called the wretched of the earth, of poor and working people, not just in America, in the American empire and this very fragile democratic experiment in the midst of that empire, but around the world. That was another reason why I wanted to be on your show. I wanted to be international. I wanted to be concerned about human beings, no matter where they are, no matter what color, no matter what gender, no matter what sexual orientation, no matter what national identity. And that's why we're calling for a paradigm shift, brother. We need a spiritual awakening and a moral reckoning in the face of institutionalized greed. That greed could be in Wall Street, it could be in Silicon Valley, it can be in the Pentagon. Greed at the top especially. And I believe, of course, we got greed inside of all of us, but I'm talking about institutionalized greed with predatory capitalist tendencies that tend to suck everything up for money and for profit. And then we got the neo-fascism escalating, especially in the Republican Party. And what is that? That's institutionalized hatred. It plays on the fear of people. And see, Trump speaks to a number of white brothers and sisters who are catching hell, who are, in fact, in deep trouble, who deserve an attention in terms of having their basic needs met. That's precisely why I want Medicare for all. That's precisely why I want free education. That's precisely why I want access to living wages. That's precisely why I want to make sure people have access to quality housing. And so the question is, you cannot defeat neo-fascism by milquetoast neoliberalism. There's no way you can do it. You got to get at the roots of it. You got to bring vision and passion to convince people not to follow neo-fascist Pied Pipers, but actually let them know that there are persons on the so-called left, which is simply say persons of integrity, honesty, and decency looking at the world through the lens of poor and working people. That's really what it is. So I don't want to get into the labels. I'm talking about the substance. I'm talking about those who really have a deep care and concern about suffering people, no matter where they are. And in that way, you cut against a lot of the truncated public conversation. You get a realignment of not just perceptions, but of people. People finding themselves in coalitions they had not planned on being there with. That's crucial. That's exactly what we need. And what's at stake, my brother? You know better than I. You talk about it every day. The destruction of the species, the destruction of democracy, not just in the American empire, everywhere. Most importantly, it's the destruction of our capacity to love, though, brother. Because, see, that's a spiritual emptiness. So I run as a jazz man of politics. Because jazz is about three elements. It's about the blues, and the blues is about catastrophe. catastrophe lyrically expressed, catastrophe genuinely engaged, catastrophe transfigured by compassion and community. I come from a blues people, the catastrophe of slavery, of Jim Crow, of Jane Crow, of mass incarceration, of being taught to hate ourselves. And yet here comes Ma Rainey, here comes Bessie Smith, here come Muddy Waters. What are they doing? They're telling the truth. They're telling the truth about America. We're not talking about America's race problems or class problems or gender problems or sexual orientational problems. No, we're talking about catastrophes visited on indigenous peoples, visited on black peoples, visited on women. You're talking about U.S. foreign policy. It could be in Iran, 1953. It could be in Guatemala, in 1951. It could be in Panama. It could be in Iraq. It could be in Afghanistan. Those are not problems. Those are catastrophes visited upon precious human beings in every life in Iran, in Tel Aviv, in West Bank, in Gaza, in Afghanistan, in Lithuania, in Ethiopia. Each precious life there has the same value as a life in London or a life in California. That's the best of America. That's what Martin King was talking about. That's what I am running on. That's the tradition that runs through my veins. That's the tradition that runs through my heart, mind, and soul. And that's what I'm trying to present to the American people as the presidential candidate for the People's Party, my brother. Blues on the one hand, swing is the second element. You have a different conception of time, so you don't feel closed in, bound to a two-party system. We know the two-party system in America is a major obstacle for the empowerment of poor and working people. Both parties are in the back pocket of Wall Street, in the back pocket of the Pentagon, in the back pocket of big money. So you need a different conception of time. Well, here come Duke Ellington. It don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. You got a different conception of temporality that opens up possibilities, opens up new potentialities. So you thought that chord was closed, but here comes Monk. He got a new note. He got a new way of doing it. Here comes Mary Lou Williams, and we haven't even got the John Coltrane's Love Supreme yet. Blues on the one hand, swing on the other, and then improvisation. And this is what I love about you and your show, my brother. You are improvisational. You're flexible, you're fluid, you're protein. You don't get locked in the dogma. You don't get locked in the ossified, petrified ways of looking at the world. You got to be new. You got to be novel. You got to be open. You listen to others. You can't be a jazz musician. You can't be a blues woman unless you learn how to listen to others. Jazz is the highest level of democracy in symbolic expression. What is the anthem of my black people? Lift every voice. It's not lift every echo. No. What we have, for the most part, public discourse in America, echoes of silos. Echoes of silos, expressions of very polarized spaces where no one wants to listen and lift their own voices, think critically for themselves in such a way that you can improvise. Improvisation is not simply an artistic skill. It's a species of phronesis, what the Greeks call practical wisdom. You have to be able to judge, to get your timing right. So you tell the truth about catastrophe on the one hand, you authorize a different future in light of a different conception of time in the present, and then you improvise. And you improvise based on what? Because you love something bigger than yourself. Oh, what a great people I come from. Yes, indeed. And it's not a function of skin pigmentation, because there's a whole lot of black gangsters and black thugs. I got a lot of gangster and thug in me. But it's people who choose to be creative, people who choose dignity, people who choose defiance, people who are willing to live and die for something bigger than them. And that's very much what we're talking about. And that's why we're going to run this campaign in such a way it's going to be so unique and singular and different and distinctive from what America's used to. They better get ready.